The Holy Gospel, according to St. Matthew, the 13th chapter. Glory to you, O Lord. Jesus put before them another parable. The kingdom of heaven is like a mustard seed that someone took and sowed in his field. It is the smallest of all the seeds, but when it is grown, it is the greatest of shrubs and becomes a tree, so that the birds of the air come and make nests in its branches. He told them another parable. The kingdom of heaven is like yeast that a woman took and mixed in with 3 measures of flour until all of it was leavened. The kingdom of heaven is like treasure hidden in a field, which someone found and hid. Then in his joy he goes and sells all that he has and buys that field. Again, the kingdom of heaven is like a merchant in search of fine pearls. On finding one pearl of great value, he went and sold all that he had and bought it. Again, the kingdom of heaven is like a net that was thrown into the sea and caught fish of every kind. When it was full, they drew it ashore, sat down, and put the good into baskets, but threw out the bad. So it will be at the end of the age. The angels will come out and separate the evil from the righteous and throw them into the furnace of fire, where there will be weeping and gnashing of teeth. Have you understood all this? They answered, yes. And he said to them, therefore, every scribe who has been trained for the kingdom of heaven is like a master of a household, who brings out of his treasure what is new and what is old. The Gospel of the Lord. So I am one of those annoying people who loves to make lists. Sometimes I even make lists of lists. Lists help me to remember important things. They assist me in organizing my days, and like many people who make lists, I get this strange sense of accomplishment whenever I can cross something off of the list, or delete something off of the list, since most of my lists are now probably just on my phone and I just delete them as I do them. Sometimes the things on my lists are big, important things, but usually I can remember those things. So the things on my list are very often smaller, more immediate tasks. Plus, smaller, immediate tasks can quickly be done and checked off so that I get that aforementioned sense of accomplishment that I have done something. Lately, though, I have noticed that there are a number of small things, little things, that I just haven't gotten around to. They've stayed on my list for weeks, and none of them would take that long. I know I should do them, but I just haven't. Here are 3 of them. One of them is, I need to remake my regular checkup appointment with the dentist. You know, I had an appointment every 6 months. I go see the dentist. I get my teeth checked and cleaned and all that kind of stuff. And like many people, I had an appointment, but then COVID happened. All the dentist's office shut down, and my appointment got canceled. But a couple weeks ago, probably more than a couple weeks ago now, dentist's office started to reopen, and they called me up and they said, hey, we need to remake your appointment. Call us, remake the appointment. And I know I should reschedule that. It wouldn't take but a minute, but I haven't gotten around to it yet. Then, number 2, need to take the car in for a recall. In the middle of everything else that's going on, I got a letter from Subaru that says that there is a very minor chance that the fuel pump on my nearly new car might not work right at some point in the future. It will only take an hour to fix it. Won't cost me anything. Real easy to do, but haven't gotten around to it yet. And then there is the get the propane tank filled for my grill. I have 2. Once one is empty, I swap it out with the full one, and I add to my list, I gotta get the empty one filled. But even when I grill almost every day, which I do in the summertime, I know it'll take a couple of months before I'm actually at a point where I'm going to need more propane, so I haven't gotten around to doing that either. Usually, I knock little things like this off of my list pretty quickly. So I was wondering, why haven't I gotten around to these and several other things like them? And I realized that these, like so many little things in life, aren't hard. They're not time-consuming. but they're also not fun. They're not exciting or interesting, and they don't really seem to be mission critical right now. That's the way it often is with little things in life. And I was thinking about that as I was reading today's gospel reading, because Jesus spends a lot of time talking about little things. A mustard seed, an invisible amount of yeast, or even a pearl, which to the untrained eye wouldn't maybe seem all that exciting. And yet, Jesus uses these things because he says the kingdom of heaven, God's presence in our lives and in our world, is often made known and experienced through little things. And sometimes, like the little things that sit on my list, these things, these little things that make the kingdom of God known, don't at first seem all that fun or exciting or even mission critical in times of great stress and conflict. And yet, we all know that is not the case. Little things that seem insignificant can end up being mission critical down the road. I mean, if that fuel pump actually fails, and I have had a fuel pump fail on me before, I will be stranded someplace, and that will be mission critical. Little things that seem small often grow into bigger things. Because, I mean, if I really do have a cavity, and I don't know about it, it will get bigger. And little things that don't seem all that exciting right now could have a way of exciting me in the future, because you really don't want to ever see me and how I react when I run out of propane in the middle of grilling something. Sometimes, the little things really are the important things. And Jesus points out that these important little things are often the ways God works through us to make the kingdom of heaven a real and tangible experience in the life of others in our world. And so these brief parables of Jesus point out that the things that we do to be faithful are important even when they do not seem flashy or exciting. When they're actually not flashy or exciting. The pearl of great value is still lying around to be found by this merchant because it didn't seem flashy or important to other buyers. Other buyers apparently were drawn to something else, and they missed how important this actually was. And sometimes, it's the unexciting, unflashy stuff that really makes a difference. And I was thinking about that a few weeks ago. Tammy Bulla, who goes to church here with us, is a person who works for the chief of police at the Howard County Police Department, and she was leading a Zoom discussion on policing in Maryland and helping us to learn different things. And she said, decisions are made by the police and by local governments because of community feedback. She says, you would be surprised how much happens because people in the community show up at a meeting and express a concern, or even send a simple email to somebody. And lots of us thought, nobody pays attention to what we say or what we do. And Tammy says, no, you know what? I actually am one of the people that reads those emails. I pass them along. I know these things are actually taken seriously. And she said, if you want to affect change, if you want to make a difference in how things happen in your community, simply showing up at a meeting, online or in person, sending an email that says, hey, I'm concerned about this, or even, I'm glad you're doing this, keep it up. She said, those actually make a difference. Policy is made because we do those small, seemingly insignificant things. It's not as exciting and it's not as flashy as posting righteous indignation on social media. But, Tammy was assuring us that those little things are actually the things that make a difference in the life of real people in our community. Jesus uses little things in these parables to point out that the little things we do to be faithful are sometimes important because we do them together. One grain of yeast doesn't really do much of anything. Yeast makes a difference when it grows, and when lots of them get together and start doing things, the whole loaf gets leavened, Jesus says. Now, often, I really do think, as I was telling the kids in the children's sermon, that I forget to buy things for Gaithersburg Help because I think it's a small, insignificant thing. It's just a couple of cans of food, a couple of bags of rice, a few boxes of cereal. How much difference is that going to make? But I'll tell you that I have paid more attention to these bins that we have outside of the church as we've been collecting not only from our congregation but from others for Gaithersburg Help. And when we all do it together, it really shows how much of a difference we can make when we do little things together, when all of us do them. And that's the same message that we've been learning as we've been listening to how we actually get control of this pandemic. It's all little stuff that we all have to do. And if we all do it, it'll make a huge difference in the life of our community. Wear your mask. Wash your hands. Stay 6 feet from people. If we do all those things and all this together, it actually does change things. It has changed things in other places. Little things actually bring literal health to people in our community. And Jesus teaches us not to ignore these little things, and he uses little things in the parable, maybe most important, to point out that God can do big things with the little things we do. Now, all of these weeks, last several weeks, we have been reading about seeds. You may be sicker of hearing about seeds than Pastor Christine and I are of preaching on seeds, but here's the thing about seeds. All the sower does is throw the seed in the ground. That's it. If the sower actually does that thing, that's all the sower needs to do. The sower can't make the seed grow. And Jesus uses this image because he wants to make it clear that if the sower just does that one little thing, God can do great things with it. God can create something new and big and important. And sometimes that's the thing that I have experienced in my life. Sometimes the thing that has made a big difference to me has been something that someone said or did, thinking it was just a small thing. And it was. Sometimes the things people have told me that I did that have made a huge difference were things that I don't even remember doing or saying because it seemed like such a small, trivial thing. And it was. But God took the thing and did something great with it. It wasn't me or you. It was God making the small thing into something amazing. So Jesus reminds us today not to ignore the small things or to think that they aren't important. Little things really can make a difference and can even be the ways in which God's presence and love are most powerfully experienced in the lives of others. So maybe the lesson that I need to remember, and maybe you too, is not to ignore the little things or to let them sit on the list. Send an email to an elected official. Buy some food for Gaithersburg Help. Wear your mask. And reach out to that person who you think may just need to hear from a friend. Sometimes the little thing you do, it won't seem like much. And you may never see the result. But Jesus promises that many of the little things that you and I do are indeed powerful. Not because we are so powerful, but because God is able to do great things, even with our weakness.